Hi, I wanted to comment on a video called Schiff Predictions, open quote, the myth, close quote, FLV, because I had a bit of a run-in with the guy who posted it, uh, and I felt the need to correct a few things and finish posting since he ended up blocking me for reasons that you will probably laugh at when I talk about that. But the first thing I posted to this video, if you want to watch it, go ahead and see what I'm talking about. The first thing I posted was government debt is not meaningless, which is what it seems like you're trying to say. While government can monetize debt by selling bonds to the Fed, it doesn't. Governments don't actually issue money anymore. It's actually the central banks who issue money or authorize the issuance of money. It cannot print the real wealth that is used, that it uses the money to purchase. Hyperinflation is a dangerous possibility when governments run up massive debt like ours. It is, in fact, the next generation who will have to work through the resulting currency crisis and a reduced standard of living from the massive debt consumption that this generation enjoyed, which is logically has to be true. And he responds, "This is exactly, all caps, why you dig holes for a living. You deny facts, all caps. The debt was too high when it was 100 million. At 16 trillion, you still babble the same old explicative, just like the idiots before you. It is amazingly unreal to me just how stupid people really are. A government must, all caps, first issue a currency before it can tax a portion of it back. Therefore, you dumb explicative, a currency can never exist without debt. Nor does a government ever need to tax, since the government is the source, all caps, to begin with. You idiot, all caps." Part of this I agree with. You don't have a debt-based, a fiat currency system unless somebody is taking out debt that is illegitimate debt in order to issue currency. So I think I understand what he's saying. He is not saying it in the right way for intellectual discussion by any means, but I think I understand what he means. That fiat currency naturally produces a huge debt bubble. It does. The way I respond is that's why we should be using a commodity money instead of a debt-based currency. He responds, "And why is that?" I respond, "So the market controls the value of money and what is and is not money. So counterfeiters face a damaged reputation. So credit expansion always contracts sustainably, which is a very important factor. So interest rates must be determined by actual time preference." This point is absolutely critical because if the money that we use fails to determine real time preference, you're going to see wastes and booms and painful busts, recessions. The boom bust cycle, the trade cycle, is actually a product of money not being capable of reflecting real interest rates because they're constantly manipulated by the way we issue the money. And another reason why we should not have this fiat currency system and should have commodity money is so buying power is maintained, so one income can support an entire family as labor becomes more productive, obviously. And also, finally, so money cannot be monopolized, which is a dangerous situation for everyone using the currency. And then he responds, "You are incoherent. You want the government to be debt-free? Great, that means you have to give back the money it gave you to buy the assets you own, which is a big dildo." He used the word dildo. Government debt, you retard, equals private assets. No private assets equals no government debt. A government must first issue currency before taxing a portion of it back. That means government doesn't ever need to tax since they are the source from where dollars originate from. You ignorant explicative head. only limit to government printing is inflation, and we have none. Fact. All caps. Actually, that is very untrue. If you look at FRED data from the St. Louis Federal Reserve branch, you will notice that this is in fact quite false. I respond, I just want to comment on that. What he's basically saying is that you have to, in order to pay back debt from a fiat currency system through a central bank, you would have to sell everything you have, liquidate everything, and hold everything in cash, and then pay back the money to the Federal Reserve who issued it, or the central bank that issued it, which is true. But the fact that you will never ever need to tax because the government is the source of currency is patently false. Now, I'm personally against taxation. I believe it violates self-ownership. You own your body, you own your productivity, therefore it's not within anyone's right to take from you what is yours. But the government has to tax if it is going to maintain its ability to print money. Otherwise, people will very quickly lose faith in the currency, and the money that it prints won't buy the things it wants to buy. It's very simple. I respond to his last comment. So you weren't being sarcastic when you said the government doesn't need to tax because it is the source of money. Can I ask you where the value behind money comes from, or why counterfeiting is bad? Him. Nope, it wasn't because it's a fact. He's saying he's not being sarcastic because it's a fact that governments don't need to tax because they're a source of money. And he goes on to say, I don't live in delusional worlds such as yourself. Duh, I don't know why counterfeiting is bad. You tell me. Counterfeiting is bad because it reduces people's buying power. And he says I live in a delusional world when he's the one saying that a government can continue to print money without ever reclaiming any of it, and that this is somehow implicitly a sustainable system. Who's honestly delusional here? I respond by saying, I'm incoherent. You're the one talking about debt and dildos. You think inflation is no big deal? Have you asked yourself why one man's income could support an entire family in the 60s, which was after the World War II, when there was a massive deregulation and massive cuts in government spending, which freed up capital for people to actually use real resources in ways that satisfied real demand? Why it took two income streams to support a family in the 70s, why consumer credit rose to the 80s and exploded in the 90s, and now half the population relies on government subsidies just to get by. This is what a destruction of the currency looks like. The average life of a fiat currency, by the way, is 27 years. He responds, yes, you are extremely incoherent. Wrong question to ask. Shiftard. What did a family in the 60s own? That's the question, retard. I can tell you no microwave, no flat screen TV with cable, satellite radio, DVD, internet, fax machine, scanner, printer, ink, smartphone, iPad, car for every family member, insurance and maintenance to go along with that, traffic fines, etc. You live in a delusional world, meathead. You have no argument, none. You are full of explicative and ignorance. So you're possessive, you're blocked. Well, in terms of buying power and a living standard that was up to par, in the 60s, one stream of income, one person's stream of income, whether it be the head of the house, man or woman, whatever, one stream of income was able to supply an entire family and keeping them up to par with standard of living. They could buy all the food they need, the clothes they need. They could pay for their transportation needs, their housing needs. All of this with one source of income. Of course, we have much more technology now. We've advanced technologically and in the knowledge realm, of course. But most of what we have today can no longer be funded by currency, by money that is backed by its last exchange, because we're becoming less and less productive. More and more of our expenditures are coming through debt. I mean, this is a natural occurrence of a fiat currency system. It's just a natural product of it. So I would like to follow up on this conversation since he did block me. I was trying to be as polite as possible, explain things, and he comes through with all this with his own version of what he calls argument. So I'd like to follow up by saying it's regrettable that this character does not know how to have a civilized and mature discussion with people who actually know what they're talking about, provided he doesn't like what they have to say, which is the mark of an ideologue. The fact that he felt the need to block me is evidence in action that he did not actually have the intellectual resources to properly combat my arguments. Among the few proper reasons to block someone from commenting would be for doing exactly what he was doing to me, which is essentially word bombing. His totally reckless stream of insults, all caps and exclamation points, further emphasizes this point. In spite of his ill behavior, I would like to offer some pointers in formulating argumentative responses. If you are going to invoke fact, capitalizing the word fact does not show that it is fact. Evidence does. If you're going to invoke any kind of logic, which the arguments you have presented thus far lack entirely, eliminate sarcasm because it makes your position totally incomprehensible. I don't actually know what you stand for at this point. All I know from your responses is that you were miffed with what I had to say. You were just pissed with what I was throwing back at you. Back on the topic of monetary economics, there was more I was hoping to add before I was needlessly blocked. There is no need for name calling just because you don't understand monetary economics or its history, and I do. I'm well aware that fiat currencies require massive debt bubbles which have and always will collapse, the inherent problem of non-market money. The U.S. dollar bubble is growing far faster than the demand for new money actually warrants, signaling that it is approaching its own precipice. And this is actually quite true, and evidence can show that over the past couple years, the rate at which the Federal Reserve has been producing money to buy bonds, they call it QE, has actually roughly tripled the money supply since about 2009. And what this is doing, this is putting tremendous pressure on the bond market. I mean, they're putting so much money into the supply, paying banks to keep reserves to keep price inflation low, and at the same time jacking up prices of bonds by buying lots of them, but that also reduces the yield, so it makes the bond market much less attractive. At some point, there is going to be a bursting of this bond market bubble, and it's going to harm the value of the dollar very, very significantly. So what I'm actually advocating through all this is a market type of money, a money that is supplied by nature effectively and doesn't have to be loaned into existence. I mean, the system we have now distorts capital markets in so many ways. And I'm not just talking about car loans and mortgages and stuff like that. I'm talking about like actual equity markets. When the price of debt and time preference is so distorted, you are going to have boom and bust cycles. You're going to have huge volatility in like stock markets and on Wall Street. So I'm basically calling for a monetary system that doesn't necessarily go back to anything like a gold standard, because that's basically price fixing. I'm saying like we need to stop this whole legal tender law paradigm and stop printing money and just allow the market to adopt new money whenever, if so ever it chooses. Like we could be trading in milligrams of silver with our debit cards, like a debit card that actually goes to a bank and says milligrams of silver now belong to this company or whatnot. If you are interested in topics related to monetary economics, I would highly recommend reading something from Joe Salerno. He is brilliant, and also from him, Jörg Guido Husmann. I think I said that right. Until then, I'm leaving it to you. And this is actually my first YouTube post, so hopefully you'll like it and ask for more. I don't know. Maybe I'll come back with a little more. So take care. Until then.